stood in the kitchen doorway, staring at the cold, untouched plate of Christmas ham that I'd spent hours preparing the day before. At exactly 6:15 a.m. on Christmas morning, I watched my ex-husband Victor's sleek black Range Rover back out of the driveway, loaded with brand new snowboards and designer luggage. My 3 grown children, Aiden, Brooke, and Cameron, climbed into the vehicle with bright smiles, bundled in expensive winter coats and scarves that I'd never seen before. Victor's 44-year-old girlfriend, Lauren, sat in the front passenger seat, her long blonde hair perfectly styled even at this early hour. She leaned over to kiss Victor as he shifted into drive, her hand lingering on his shoulder while he glanced in the rearview mirror at our children. I remained there in my faded flannel pajamas and old robe, clutching a mug of lukewarm coffee, watching the only family I'd ever known drive away to spend Christmas at a 5-star ski lodge in Vail without me. "Mom, you know your knees couldn't handle the slopes," Aiden had said 3 weeks earlier when they first told me about the trip. "And honestly, it would probably feel strange having you there with Lauren." Brooke had nodded in agreement, adding with that dismissive tone she'd perfected over the years, "You just end up sitting in the lodge the whole time anyway. We want this to be an active, fun holiday." Cameron had been the one to seal it. "We'll do something when we get back, maybe a late Christmas brunch or whatever." A late Christmas brunch, as if the 39 years I'd spent crafting perfect holiday mornings for them, waking at dawn to stuff stockings, baking cinnamon rolls from scratch, creating memories they now seemed eager to forget, could be replaced with a casual brunch at some trendy restaurant. I had raised 3 children who apparently saw me as little more than a relic from their past, a 68-year-old divorced woman who no longer fit into their polished, upwardly mobile lives and who would only embarrass them in front of their father's younger, more glamorous partner. The house was achingly silent without the usual sounds of Christmas morning that had defined my existence for decades. No footsteps racing down the stairs, no excited gasps over presents, no laughter filling the rooms that now held only echoes of traditions that had crumbled along with my marriage. I spent the day the way abandoned people do on holidays. I tidied rooms that were already spotless, flipped through old photo albums that made my chest ache, and picked at leftovers that tasted like nothing. If my story resonates with you, if you've ever felt overlooked or pushed aside by the people who should love you most, subscribe to the channel and stay with me. There are more stories like this one, real, raw, and full of hard truths, and I'd love to have you here for the next. I tried calling my older brother in Florida, but he was deep into hosting his grandchildren and could spare only a few minutes. "Why don't you fly down next year?" he offered vaguely before hurrying off to carve the turkey. We both knew he wouldn't push the invitation, and I wouldn't have the heart to accept it anyway. By late afternoon, I was curled in Victor's old leather armchair, the one piece he'd left behind because Lauren said it clashed with her modern decor, still in the same robe, wondering when I had become the kind of woman whose own children made excuses to avoid spending Christmas with her. The divorce 6 years earlier had shifted everything, slowly at first, like ice cracking beneath the surface. Victor's departure had somehow lowered my worth in their eyes, as though being left by their father proved some hidden flaw they'd never noticed before. Or maybe they'd always viewed me as ordinary and outdated, and his marriage to me had merely hidden their real feelings about their plain, devoted mother. Victor Langford was 59 when he announced he was leaving our 37-year marriage for his marketing director. "I need to feel vibrant again," he'd told me with that practiced sincerity he used on clients. "Lauren makes me feel alive in ways I thought were gone forever." What he really meant was that Lauren was 24 years younger, had toned arms and no joint pain, and didn't remind him every day that he was nearing 70 with little more than a successful real estate firm and 3 adult children who only called when they wanted something. The settlement was decent, but not lavish, enough to keep my modest home and cover basics, but nowhere near enough to match Victor's new lifestyle or Lauren's expensive habits. While I compared prices at the grocery store and skipped non-essential doctor visits, Victor was whisking everyone off on Caribbean cruises, and now this lavish ski trip to Vail. And my children, raised in solid upper-middle-class comfort, had clearly chosen the side that offered glamour and excitement over quiet loyalty. At 10:45 p.m., just as I was about to switch off the twinkling lights on the Christmas tree, there was a firm knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw 3 people in dark overcoats standing under the porch light, 2 men and a woman, all carrying briefcases and looking far too official for Christmas night. My heart stuttered. For a terrifying moment, I thought something had happened to the family on the mountain roads. "Mrs. Langford?" asked the older man when I cracked open the door. He appeared to be in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, with the calm authority of someone used to delivering life-altering news. "Yes," I managed. "Is everyone all right? Has there been an accident?" "No, ma'am, nothing like that. My name is Richard Ellison, and these are my associates, Claire Montgomery and Thomas Park. We're partners at Harrington and Associates. We've been trying to reach you regarding an urgent matter concerning your late father's estate." "My father? My father died in a factory accident when I was 3. There is no estate." "I believe there has been a serious misunderstanding about your family history," Richard said gently. "May we come inside? What we have to discuss is sensitive and rather extraordinary." I stepped aside, suddenly aware of my unwashed hair and day-old clothes. These people looked like they belonged in penthouse offices, not my quiet suburban living room with its thrift store lamp and fading wallpaper. Richard settled on the couch and opened a sleek leather portfolio. "Mrs. Langford, your biological father was not the man who died when you were 3. Your mother told you that story to spare you the pain of abandonment. Your true father was Nathaniel Whitmore, founder of Whitmore Global Investments. He passed away 4 months ago at the age of 92. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. That can't be right. My mother never— "She protected you the only way she knew how," Claire interjected softly. "Nathaniel Whitmore left your mother when you were 3 to focus on building his empire. He never remarried and had no other children, but he never stopped following your life from a distance." "Following my life?" The words came out hoarse. Thomas nodded. "He engaged private investigators for decades to monitor your education, career, marriage, the birth and growth of your children, everything. He maintained extensive files." "Why would he do that and never once reach out?" Richard met my eyes steadily. "Because 4 months ago he died and left you his entire fortune." The room spun. My father, whom I'd mourned as dead my whole life, had actually been alive, watching silently while amassing a fortune he'd now passed to the daughter he'd walked away from. "Entire fortune? Meaning—" I whispered. Richard slid documents across the coffee table next to the congealed ham and half-empty coffee mug. "Approximately $380 million in liquid assets, plus controlling interest in Whitmore Global Investments, valued at over $1.2 billion. You are now one of the wealthiest women in the country." Some Christmas mornings bring joy and family around the tree. Mine brought 3 attorneys on Christmas night with news that rewrote everything I thought I knew about my past, my worth, and the family who'd just left me behind for a luxury ski trip, completely unaware that the outdated mother they'd dismissed had suddenly become extraordinarily rich. I sat there until well past midnight, staring at pages filled with numbers I couldn't fully grasp, while the attorneys waited patiently. "Mrs. Langford, I know this is overwhelming. Take whatever time you need." $380 million? I repeated numbly. "You're telling me the father who abandoned me when I was 3 spent nearly 70 years building an empire and then left it all to me?" "That is correct. and per his explicit instructions, the inheritance was to be disclosed only after his death and your 68th birthday, whichever came later. Why those conditions? Claire consulted a thick file. Mr. Whitmore believed sudden wealth in youth could distort character. He wanted to ensure you'd lived a full, independent life and developed your values without the influence of money. He felt financial security in later years would enhance the wisdom you'd already earned. He watched me for almost 70 years and judged my character worthy. Thomas opened another folder and revealed photographs that stole my breath, images of me volunteering at the women's shelter, coaching literacy classes at the community center, delivering meals to shut-ins, organizing fundraisers for the local animal rescue, things I'd done quietly because they felt right, not for recognition. Mr. Whitmore was especially moved by your continued community involvement after your divorce, Claire noted. Despite personal hardship, you increased your service rather than withdrawing. They had pictures of me during those dark months, tired eyes, forced smiles, still showing up to help others while my own world fell apart. The violation of privacy was immense, yet strangely comforting. Someone had seen my quiet struggles and decided they mattered. What happens now? I asked. The transition will be carefully managed. A trust structure provides immediate access to $8 million for personal use, with additional releases guided by your comfort and planning. You retain full control over investments, philanthropy, everything. $8 million available tomorrow. The number felt unreal. Confidentiality? I asked quickly. My family doesn't need to know right away. Entirely your decision, Richard assured me. Mr. Whitmore's stressed privacy precisely because sudden wealth can distort family relationships. He wanted you to have time to observe authentic motives. Authentic motives, the phrase settled heavily. He also left notes suggesting you watch how people treat you before and after they learn of the inheritance, Thomas added quietly. He believed money revealed true character more clearly than anything else. I glanced around my familiar living room, the worn couch, the inexpensive decorations, the small TV Victor had left behind, and tried to imagine it all transformed. Or imagine arriving unannounced in Vale with private security and a wardrobe that would make Lauren's look modest. The attorneys exchanged subtle glances that said they'd seen impulsive revenge purchases before. You could do anything you wish, Claire said carefully, but experience shows restraint often yields clearer outcomes, especially when emotions run high. Some people spend Christmas surrounded by loved ones. I spent it discovering the father who abandoned me had gifted me the means to buy entire ski resorts, while the family I'd devoted my life to abandoned me for one. Now I had to decide whether to wield this power for instant satisfaction or for something deeper. The lawyers left just before 2 a.m. after hours of explaining trusts, taxes, and the psychology of sudden wealth. I sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, business cards from Harrington and Associates beside me, trying to absorb that I was no longer Evelyn Langford, the divorced mother too slow for family vacations. I was Evelyn Langford, sole heir to a fortune most people couldn't imagine. The irony was almost cruel in its perfection. On the very morning my children chose luxury with their father's girlfriend over a quiet Christmas with me, I had inherited enough to purchase the lodge they were staying at and probably the whole mountain. But Richard's caution about strategy echoed as I brewed fresh coffee and wondered what revenge would truly cost. At 8:30 a.m., a text arrived from Brooke. "Merry Christmas, Mom. Vale is unbelievable. Wish you could see it." The lie in those last words stung sharply enough that I almost booked the most extravagant suite available and flew out immediately. Instead, I replied, "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. So glad you're having fun." By 10 a.m., I was at my bank, holding the black card Claire had overnighted, linked to the initial $8 million. Daily limit $75,000. I'd lived on less than $38,000 a year since the divorce. I tested the balance at an ATM just to see the numbers in real life. Available $7,999,924.47. The 47 cents were the remnants of my former checking account now folded into the trust. Seeing my former life reduced to pocket change made the shift feel absolute. Social media notifications poured in. Aiden had posted photos, the four of them plus Lauren around a roaring fireplace at the lodge, champagne flutes raised. Caption, "Best Christmas ever with the people who matter most. #family, #blessed, #veil." I wasn't tagged, of course. For public consumption, I no longer existed. Brooke shared a video of herself snowboarding down a black diamond run, living my best life, no excuses, just adventure. The hashtag felt pointed, as if my bad knees were an excuse rather than reality. Cameron's post hurt deepest, a selfie with Lauren at the spa, both in plush robes, faces glowing. Grateful for family who gets self-care and living well. #new traditions, #spa day. The implication was clear. Their new unit represented vitality and beauty. I represented the past they'd outgrown. I drove to an electronics store and bought the best laptop available, plus financial planning software. If I was going to be rich, I wanted to understand wealth, not just spend it emotionally. That night, I spent hours researching Nathaniel Whitmore. He'd been a titan in private equity, famous for patient, ethical investments in companies others deemed too risky. Journalists called it character capital, backing founders whose integrity mattered more than immediate returns. Apparently, he'd applied the same philosophy to me, a 65-year observation period before releasing the ultimate investment. A psychological profile compiled for the estate described a brilliant but emotionally distant man who deeply regretted abandoning his daughter, yet lacked the courage to reconnect. Instead, he constructed an elaborate inheritance to provide for me while testing whether I'd become the kind of person worthy of great responsibility. "Your father believed true character shows in choices made when no one is watching," Richard had said. For 6 years since the divorce, I'd kept showing up at the shelter, the literacy program, the food pantry, not for praise, but because it was who I was. According to Nathaniel Whitmore, those choices had earned me $380 million. My phone rang at 9:15 p.m. Victor. "Evelyn, just checking in. The kids were worried about you being alone today." The kids were worried, second-hand concern, likely prompted. "Blair, Lauren specifically asked me to call." Lauren was now managing his ex-wife obligations. "I'm fine, Victor. Enjoying a peaceful day." "Good, good. Listen, when we're back, the kids want to take you out. Maybe that little French place you like?" A guilt-easing dinner at a mid-range bistro. Classic post-vacation token. "That would be nice. When are you returning?" "New Year's Day. There's an incredible gala here on New Year's Eve." Another week of extravagance while I stayed behind. "Have a wonderful time," I said. "Tell everyone hello." "Will do, and Evelyn, thanks for being so understanding about the veil plans. It means a lot that you're not making it difficult." Understanding, as if my exclusion was a generous accommodation rather than rejection. After hanging up, I sat holding financial freedom worth millions, thinking about character and patience and the difference between retaliation and justice. My family believed they'd left behind a struggling, inconvenient woman who would accept whatever crumbs they offered later. They had no idea they'd abandoned someone who could now buy their entire lifestyle many times over. And thanks to Nathaniel's careful planning, I had time to decide exactly how to reveal that truth. 4 days later, I was in the downtown offices of Harrington and Associates, meeting financial planners, tax specialists, and a wealth psychologist named Dr. Amelia Grant, who specialized in sudden inheritance transitions. The most common mistake, Amelia told me, is immediate, visible lifestyle inflation that signals changed circumstances to everyone around you, such as luxury vehicles, designer wardrobes, lavish gifts, extravagant travel, anything that announces wealth before you've had time to observe authentic reactions. I thought of the Instagram posts from Vail, private chefs, helicopter tours, champagne that probably cost more per bottle than my weekly grocery budget. What do you recommend instead? Gradual integration, strategic philanthropy aligned with your values, and careful observation of relationships under current conditions before introducing money as a variable. Observe relationships, test motives. Amelia showed me anonymized case studies. One woman who inherited $120 million at 70 spent 8 months quietly watching her children's behavior before disclosing anything. What she learned led her to rewrite her will dramatically. Another pretended ongoing financial struggle. Only 1 of 4 children offered genuine help. Distributions reflected that reality. The pattern was unmistakable. Wealth created a unique lens for seeing true priorities. That afternoon, I drove past the home Victor and I had shared for 25 years, the one Lauren had since redecorated into a showcase. The Christmas lights I'd hung for decades were gone, replaced by professional installations that looked flawless but cold. I parked across the street and called Brooke. She answered on the 5th ring, laughter in the background. "Hi, Mom, we're about to head to an amazing fondue dinner. Can I call you later?" "Actually, I just wanted to hear how everything's going. Is the trip wonderful?" "It's unreal. The lodge is pure luxury. The snow is perfect. The food..." She gushed about private instructors, couples massages, wine tastings. Lauren planned everything so perfectly. She really knows how to create special experiences, unlike the boring mother who apparently didn't. "I'm happy you're enjoying it. Tell me more when you're back." "Sure, Mom. Gotta run. Reservation time." Click. I saved screenshots of new posts, group photos at exclusive restaurants, captions about living well and surrounding yourself with people who elevate you. By the time they returned, I intended to have a clear picture of exactly how little I factored into their vision of an elevated life. New Year's Day brought texts full of exclamation points. Home safe, trip was epic. Dinner soon? I spent the morning preparing what Amelia called controlled observation scenarios. First test, willingness to spend unadorned time with me. I invited them all for a home-cooked roast Sunday. Responses trickled in over hours. "Sunday's tough, recovering from travel. Maybe we could go out instead? There's a new steakhouse everyone's raving about." Translation: home-cooked meant effort and conversation. Going out minimized time investment. We settled on a mid-priced Italian restaurant Tuesday evening. I arrived early and watched them enter, tanned, relaxed, glowing with vacation health. "Mom, you look rested," Brooke offered, clearly searching. "Thanks, sweetheart. You all look fantastic." Over appetizers, they recounted every detail. Private yoga on the mountain, champagne snowmobile tours, the gala with live music and fireworks. Lauren featured prominently. "She's incredible at planning," Cameron said. "Really made it magical for everyone." I listened, asked questions, and noticed. They spoke at length about their experiences, but never once asked about my Christmas, my feelings, my life. Future plans mentioned did not include me. When the check came, Aiden reached for it automatically. Standard post-vacation penance. "We should do this more," Brooke said as we parted. "How often?" "You know, when schedules allow." When schedules allow. Not because they missed me, but when their calendars had gaps. Driving home, I felt the ache of confirmation. They maintained the minimum viable relationship. The next phase would test whether they'd offer support if they believed I needed it. I called Aiden first, voice trembling just enough. "I hate bothering you, but I'm facing some money troubles. The roof needs repair I can't afford. Medical bills are piling up." "Oh wow, Mom, that's rough. Have you talked to Dad about revisiting alimony?" "Your father has new responsibilities." "Right. Well, have you looked into senior assistance programs? Or maybe downsizing? A lot of communities handle maintenance and have medical support built in. Downsizing, my eldest suggesting I sell the family home rather than offering help. Similar conversations with Brooke and Cameron yielded parallel results. Reverse mortgages, part-time work at a craft store, senior living waitlists. Not one offered personal or financial assistance. Not one invited me to stay with them temporarily. Some children rally around parents in crisis. Mine recommended institutional solutions that removed me from their daily lives. 2 weeks later, I sat with Amelia reviewing the transcripts I'd summarized. "The pattern is consistent," she said gently. "All three prioritize efficiency and distance over involvement. Normal family response would include offers of help, financial, practical, emotional. Exactly what was missing. So they love me as obligation, not relationship." Amelia nodded. "The data suggests conditional attachment correlated with perceived burden versus benefit. I scheduled one final pre-revelation test, direct requests for time and help. Aiden first. Could you come over this weekend? I need help moving furniture and some yard work my knees won't allow. This weekend's bad. Lauren's parents are hosting a brunch, and Sunday I promised Dad I'd look at investment properties with him. Maybe hire someone? Safer that way." "I'm really not handy, Mom. Have you thought about a condo? No yard, no heavy lifting?" "I love you, but ongoing house maintenance isn't realistic for me. Maybe it's time to consider a smaller place." They had endless time for brunches and real estate deals, but none for an afternoon helping their mother. That night, I requested simple emotional presence. "I've been lonely since the divorce, especially over the holidays. Could we start a regular dinner? Maybe weekly?" Responses ranged from "weekly is tough" to "monthly might work if we go out, less prep." Family to them was a low-priority calendar item. The assessment was complete. I scheduled a Saturday dinner at the same Italian restaurant and told each I had important news. Curiosity flared immediately. Saturday arrived. I wore a new silk blouse, subtle upgrade, not flashy. "Mom, you look great," Cameron said. "New outfit?" "Thank you. So, the news." I paused until all eyes focused. "I've inherited a substantial amount from my biological father." Silence. "Your father died when you were 3, Brooke said slowly. "That's what I always believed. Turns out he was Nathaniel Whitmore. He abandoned us but built an investment empire. He passed 4 months ago and left everything to me." "How much?" Aiden asked, leaning forward. "Approximately $380 million in liquid assets, plus controlling stake in his firm." The air shifted palpably. Eyes widened, calculations flickered. $380 million? Cameron whispered. "Mom, that's... Congratulations. This changes everything." "When did you find out?" Brooke demanded. "Christmas night, after you'd left for Vail." "Christmas night?" Aiden's tone sharpened. "You've known for over a month and didn't tell us?" I needed time to understand what it meant for my life. "But this affects the whole family," Brooke pressed. "We should have been part of the discussions." "How does it affect you?" Another loaded silence. "Obviously we want to help manage it," Cameron said quickly. "This scale requires professional guidance and family input on estate planning, philanthropy, trusts for us and future grandchildren." "Trusts for you?" "Of course," Aiden said confidently. "That's what parents did with generational wealth, secure their children's futures." "And what do children do when parents need security?" I asked softly. The question hung. Within minutes, they were listing advisors I should meet, tax strategies, charitable structures that would benefit everyone. Not one asked how I felt about discovering my father had watched me for decades. Not one expressed joy for my security. I let the conversation run until patterns solidified, then quietly laid out my actual plans. Modest trusts of $75,000 each, available at age 65, roughly what they might have received had I remained middle class, and the remainder dedicated to philanthropy and my own purposeful life. The shift was instantaneous: shock, anger, accusations of selfishness. $75,000 out of hundreds of millions is insulting, Brooke snapped. Where are your children? Children who suggested I work retail and move to assisted living when they thought I was broke, I replied calmly. Children who suddenly want weekly dinners now that I'm rich. That's unfair, Aiden protested. You're punishing us. I'm reflecting the priority you've shown me. The evening ended in strained goodbyes that felt final. 6 months later, I stood on the terrace of my apartment overlooking Lisbon's Tagus River, having just returned from volunteering at a women's financial literacy program I'd helped fund. I'd sold the old house, donated proceeds to domestic violence shelters, and founded Second Act Foundation, supporting women rebuilding after late-life divorce. Travel, meaningful work, and friendships based on shared blood filled my days. Aiden, Brooke, and Cameron had cycled through anger, legal threats that went nowhere, and finally silence, punctuated by occasional texts asking me to reconsider for family unity. I no longer replied. The Christmas morning they drove away believing I'd slow them down, 3 attorneys arrived with news that I'd inherited $380 million from the father I thought was dead. I tested whether my children would support me in need. They advised senior living and part-time jobs. When I revealed the inheritance, they offered help and closeness. I gave each $75,000 and used the rest to travel, start a foundation helping women like me, and surround myself with people who value who I am, not what I can buy. At 68, I'm no longer the forgotten mother eating cold ham alone on Christmas. I'm Evelyn Langhart, founder, philanthropist, world citizen, who learned that some families reveal their true worth when money enters the equation, and that the greatest gift is choosing relationships that never needed money to begin with. If this story moved you, if you've ever had to redraw your own family lines, please share your experience in the comments. I read every one. And if you want to hear more stories of women finding their strength later in life, subscribe to the channel and stay with me for the next one. You're not alone.